So, the waitress was pretty, was she? She asked casually. You really didn't notice? No, I wasn't paying attention. I had a lot on my mind. Poor girl. I could afford to be generous now. Something you said to Jessica, well, it bothers me. He refused to be distracted. His voice was husky, and he glanced up from under his lashes with troubled eyes. I'm not surprised you heard something you didn't like. You know what they say about eavesdroppers, I reminded him. I warned you I would be listening. And I warned you that you didn't want to know everything I was thinking. You did, he agreed, but his voice was still rough. You aren't precisely right, though. I do want to know what you're thinking. Everything. I just wish that you wouldn't be thinking some things. I scowled. That's quite a distinction. But that's not really the point at the moment. Then what is? You were inclined toward each other across the table now. He had his large white hands folded under his chin. I leaned forward, my right hand cupped around my neck. I had to remind myself that we were in a crowded lunchroom, with probably many curious eyes on us. It was too easy to get wrapped up in our own quiet, tense little bubble. Do you truly believe that you care more for me than I do for you? He murmured, leaning closer to me as he spoke, his dark golden eyes piercing. I tried to remember how to exhale. I had to look away before it came back to me. You're doing it again, I muttered, his eyes open wide with surprise. What? Dazzling me? I admitted, trying to concentrate as I looked back at him. Oh, he phoned. It's not your fault, I sighed. You can't help it. Are you going to answer the question? I looked down. Yes. Yes, you're going to answer, or yes, you really think that? He was irritated again. Yes, I really think that. I kept my eyes on the table, my eyes tracing the pattern of the faux wood grains printed on the laminate. The silence dragged on. I stumblingly refused to be the first one to break it this time, fighting hard against the temptation to peek at his expression. Finally he spoke, voice velvet soft. You're wrong. I glanced up to see that his eyes were gentle. You can't know that, I disagreed in a whisper. I shook my head in doubt, though my heart throbbed at his words and I wanted so badly to believe them. What makes you think so? His liquid topaz eyes were penetrating, trying futilely, I presume, to lift the truth straight from my mind. I stared back, struggling to think clearly in spite of his face, to find some way to explain. As I searched for the words, I could see him getting impatient. Frustrated by my silence, he started to scowl. I lifted my hand from my neck and held up one finger. Let me think, I insisted. His expression cleared, now that he was satisfied that I was planning to answer. I dropped my hand to the table, moving my left hand so that my palms were pressed together. He stared at my hands, twisting and untwisting my fingers, as I finally spoke. Well, aside from the obvious, sometimes I hesitated. I can't be sure. I don't know how to read minds. But sometimes it seems like you're trying to say goodbye when you're saying something else. That was the best I could sum up the sensation of anguish that his words triggered in me at times. Perceptive, he whispered. And then there was the anguish again, surfacing as he confirmed my fear. That's exactly why you're wrong, though, he began to explain, but then his eyes narrowed. What do you mean, the obvious? Well, look at me, I said, unnecessarily as he was already staring. I'm absolutely ordinary. Well, except for bad things like all the near-death experiences and being so clumsy that I'm almost disabled. And look at you. I waved my hands toward him in all his bewildering perfection. His brow creased angrily for a moment, then smoothed as his eyes took on a knowing look. You don't see yourself very clearly, you know. I'll admit you're dead on about the bad things, he chuckled blackly. But you didn't hear what every human male in the school was thinking on your first day. I blinked, astonished. I don't believe it, I mumbled to myself. Trust me just this once. You are the opposite of ordinary. My embarrassment was much stronger than my pleasure at the look that came into his eyes when he said this. I quickly reminded him of my original argument. But I'm not saying goodbye, I pointed out. Don't you see? That's what proves me right. I care the most because if I can do it, he shook his head, seeming to struggle with the thought. If leaving is the right thing to do, then I'll hurt myself to keep from hurting you, to keep you safe. I glared. And you don't think I would do the same? You never have to make the choice. Abruptly, his unpredictable mood shifted again. A mischievous, devastating smile rearranged his features. Of course, if keeping you safe is beginning to feel like a full-time application that requires my constant presence. No one was trying to do it with me today, I reminded him, grateful for the lighter subject. I didn't want him to talk about goodbyes anymore. If I had to, I suppose I could purposely put myself in danger to keep him close. I banished that thought before his quick eyes rested on my face. That idea would definitely get me in trouble. Yet, he added. Yet, I agreed. I would have argued, but now I wanted him to be expecting disasters. I have another question for you. His face was still casual. Shoot. Do you really need to go to Seattle this Saturday? Or is that just an excuse to get out of saying no to all of your admirers? I made a face at the memory. You know, I haven't forgiven you for the Tyler thing yet, I warned him. It's your fault that he's deluded himself into thinking that I'm going to prom with him. Oh, he would have found a chance to ask without me. I just really wanted to watch your face. He chuckled. I would have been angry if his laughter wasn't so fascinating. If I'd asked you, would you have turned me down? He asked, still laughing to himself. Probably not, I admitted. But I would have canceled later, faked an illness or a sprained ankle. He was puzzled. Why would you do that? I shook my head sadly. You never see me in gym, I guess, but I would have thought you would understand. Are you referring to the fact that you can't walk across a flat, stable surface without finding something to trip over? Obviously. That wouldn't be a problem. He was very confident. It's all in the leading. He could see that I was about to protest and he cut me off. But you never told me. Are you resolved on going to Seattle? Or do you mind if we do something different? As long as the we part was in, I didn't care about anything else. I'm open to alternatives, I allowed, but I do have a favor to ask. He looked wary, as he always did when I asked the open-ended question. What? Can I